So in this video, I'm going to talk about gastroparesis and how it affected my daughter who had shaken baby syndrome. So what is gastroparesis? I'm getting this info from Mayo Clinic, and it says that it's also known as delayed gastric emptying. And so it's a condition that affects the stomach muscles that causes a stomach to not have the ability to empty properly. And it's very rare, less than 200,000 US cases per year, and it cannot be cured. And so it's caused by different things. Ours was caused by shaken baby syndrome. So whenever she was shaken, it caused a bunch of GI issues, and one of those was the gastroparesis, where her stomach wouldn't empty. So it's usually treated with medications. In our case, she was given erythromycin, which is an antibiotic. And so basically she was given this antibiotic to help her stomach empty, and she was on a feeding tube and could not have anything by mouth. So the reason that she ended up taking the antibiotic was for anything extra that happened to be in her stomach, stomach bile, fluids, saliva, different things like that ended up in the stomach is why she had to take the erythromycin anyways, even though she could not have anything by mouth in the first place. So we did try, when Christa was first injured, to feed her by mouth. We tried the bottle again. We tried speech therapy, occupational therapy, a bunch of different therapies to make it to where she would be able to have something by mouth again. Because at first I could just tell it seemed like she was hungry and she wasn't able to get anything in except through a feeding tube. So she had a GJ tube replaced, which bypasses the stomach and goes straight into the intestines, since she was having so much reflux. And she wasn't diagnosed with gastroparesis or anything wrong with her stomach immediately. So what happened was, she was shaken, she was given a G tube, and we were only in the hospital for about a month. So she would have reflux constantly. And so I took her home, as a new special needs mother, on my own, trying to understand everything that she was going through and to give her the best treatment. But she kept having this reflux. And I remember she had seen a GI specialist maybe once in the hospital during that month-long stay, who determined she needed the G-tube and couldn't take anything by mouth, because we tried speech therapy in the hospital to get her to be able to take things by mouth, and she never could learn how to suck on a bottle again. So she would choke constantly. I would give her formula through her G-tube, which would go into her stomach, and she would be vomiting constantly. She was choking, she was having reflux, and I just knew, this can't be normal. We cannot go through this every day. I can't watch her choking every single day. And so I was able to finally get her into a GI doctor. It takes time to get into these specialists. And once I got there, the GI doctor was freaking out. She should have been with a J-tube the entire time. Why did no one diagnose her with gastroparesis? Why was she given a G-tube? She never should have been given a G-tube. It should have always been a J-tube. She could have died any time by, I can't think of the word, but it's when they suck down the vomit into their airways and end up having a bunch of issues. But I was not happy with the way all of that went, because I was unaware that my child needed a J-tube. I just thought, okay, this is how she is now. This is how it's going to be. I trusted the medical team during that month-long stay that they had made the best decision for her. I had no idea what a J-tube was. I thought, okay, she has a feeding tube. That's that. And so she ended up going directly from the GI doctor to the ER, where they determined she needed the surgery done for a J-tube. So that's how she ended up getting diagnosed, which is, to me, it was a very upsetting way to get diagnosed with something like that, because I felt if her medical care had been thorough enough, they would have been able to realize that before then, and we wouldn't have had to suffer so much of her choking every day and things like that. So she got diagnosed then, and that's when they placed a J-tube. And the J-tube was a huge help, but I'm checking my notes because I always get off task or get off focus here. So when she had the feeding tube placed, she was placed on a formula. And then we had to go through the process of figuring out what her stomach could hold as far as formula. So over time, she ended up having to get the weakest type of formula for her body to not reject. So we went through several different formulas, and her body kept rejecting each time, and she would vomit even with a J tube. And so with that feeding tube, she ended up having to have surgery every 4 months to replace it, because a regular G tube, feeding tube, you can replace yourself and you don't have to go in, and maybe you might have to go in for a doctor's appointment, but you don't have to go under anesthesia through like a surgery to get replaced. And so around that time, every 4 months, it would get so bad for her and so painful, because the tube would start hardening inside of her. There's a balloon that holds it in on the inside, that holds the J tube in place on the inside of her stomach, and it would get very irritated and cause her some pain. And I could always just tell that it was time to go get it replaced by how she would act. And her nurses were able to tell that eventually too. The way she was acting determined something, we needed to go see the GI doctor. So we'd have to schedule a visit to go see the GI doctor, and he would confirm, yes, let's change the tube. Sometimes I would have to advocate for her if they were like, well, it's only been 3 months, not 4 months. And, I would have to advocate and say, no, she needs this done. There's something wrong. She's in pain and things like that. And so we were blessed to receive formula through different programs in the state. So her formula would get sent to her house. I think it was like monthly. And so that was a huge blessing to have that, because for 3.5 years she was on formula. And every single day we would change that formula every, I think, 6 to 12 hours. We would change the formula, and it would be a continuous feed for her all day long. So we also, taking care of her, since she couldn't have anything by mouth because of the gastroparesis, we had these, mouth swabs to help wet her mouth. And, I just can't imagine being in that position where you can't have anything by mouth. And so I always did feel for her, sad for her that she couldn't enjoy things. And it also made me think we should really enjoy and appreciate the fact that we can even just eat and drink. Like, how blessed are we that we can just do those things? And we don't always think that until we're around someone who can't do it. So the gastroparesis actually ended up leading to an infection. She had a huge intestinal infection, was in the hospital for 90 days. They, I'll try to say this, just a warning to you. I'm about to say some medical things that are very uncomfortable to talk about or to hear. But when she had this infection, she had to go into emergency surgery, and they basically had to cut her stomach open, pull her intestines out, cut out the infection, and then put them in a bag to heal. So for a whole month, I had to go into this ICU room and see my daughter there in a medical coma because she couldn't be awake, and her hands tied down so she couldn't move. Even when she came out of the coma, they had her hands tied down so she couldn't move, on life support because she couldn't function that way. And her intestines were on the outside of her body healing. And so that was a lot to, see every single day as a mom. But they eventually did heal. She had to go in and out of surgery during that time. They ended up healing, and she did okay, and we moved on from there. But these are just some things that gastroparesis can cause. Shaken baby syndrome can cause. It's very sad. It's very, I know a few people who are otherwise healthy who have gastroparesis, and I just can't imagine. But, I see these incredible people who are just living their life with a feeding tube every day and things like that. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I take my health for granted, and I will not do that again. When I see these people and I see how brave they are, and, if that's you, if you have gastroparesis, you're just so brave and so amazing, and you just make me, inspire me to be thankful for my health. So I hope this video was helpful talking about gastroparesis. Like this video, comment on this video, let me know if you want to see more content like this, and then share this with someone who, may have gastroparesis or has a daughter who has it, or, anything like that. So I'll see you on the next video.